Yo, what up gamers, I'm Dark. Welcome to my 12.13 ADC tier list. We're gonna go over the patch notes real quick. Only, I think, really got changes to Sivir here as far as ADCs go, if you don't count Corki. So yeah, this is a mid-scope update, basically a rework, small rework. All of the abilities, they're still the same abilities, but they're a bit changed. So a bunch of base stats nerfs there. The only one, or changes. The only ones that I'll note, or the only one that I'll note, is the decrease to the base AD that she has at the start. I note that because when I played her, I was a bit surprised at how much harder it was to last hit. I didn't read that they were nerfing her base stats. So I was like, why do Maudas feel like they do no damage now to the minions? And that's why she lost 5 AD, which is pretty big. But, you know, it was deserved because her abilities are much better now. As for the abilities themselves, so the passive just got straight up buffed, I think. It's not a flat duration anymore. It now decays over 1.5 seconds, but the amount of movement speed that you get is a lot better now, and overall the ability seems to be a lot better from what I've tested. As for Q, I think it does slightly less damage. Overall, at least throughout the most of the game. Also has a higher cooldown, now scaling down with levels. Cost time goes down from 0.25 seconds to 0 seconds, depending on your attack speed. Although I've read that apparently, like, it can't actually really go down to 0 seconds. Like, even with 3.14, it's still like 3.6 attack speed is still like 0.14 cost time. So I don't know what's up with that. Maybe they're lying. Now also this goes with crit chance, dealing up to 50% bonus damage at 100% crit chance. So despite the base damage nerfs and the scaling nerfs, at late game on crit builds, it's still going to be probably doing more damage than it used to. But it's definitely weaker throughout the early game. They also massively increase the missile speed when moving outwards. I don't know, 100 missile speed doesn't sound like a lot, but try it in game, you'll see it's much faster than that. It's much more reliable. You can easily hit enemies with that. It's not as easy for them to dodge anymore. They also massively reduce the mana cost, especially scaling. So you're not as reliant on the spell shield giving you mana anymore to sustain your Q spam, because your Q spam is just sustainable by itself now. You will occasionally run out of mana, but it is what it is. Then, okay, so W lost a bunch of AD ratio scaling, but lost 15 mana cost, which is great because you don't have mana from E anymore. The buff now lasts 4 seconds instead of 3 seconds. Now has a 10-second cooldown at all ranks. But here comes the good stuff. So now when you activate Ricochet, you get an attack speed buff for those entire 4 seconds. Okay, deals 80% damage to minions, whatever. Still better wave clear than it was before, honestly. So now previously it would bounce like 8 times. No, it would bounce unlimited. So long as it had a target to bounce to, it would keep bouncing. Now it's limited to just 8. And that's because it can bounce onto the same target more than once now. So you can get a lot of potential bounces. On average, your W will be bouncing more than it was before. So this might sound like it's a little bit of a nerf, but it's still going to be a better ability in terms of like how much it bounces 99% of the time. Bounce range also increased from 450 to 500. That's also something I noticed in game. It's very welcome. Much easier to get your bounce onto the next target, which will, you know, enable targets future bounces as well. You don't get the ability or the bounces cut short. Missile speed also improved. Definitely makes it more reliable as well. Improved by 300 actually. That's huge. I didn't notice it was that much. And yeah, ricochets can now bounce back to the targets that have already been hit, but only one additional time. Ricochets will prioritize new targets first. Okay, so just to specify though, when you press W now, it's no longer just 3 ricochets. It's now as many as you can get during that 4-second period. So this ability has just been massively buffed. It may have lost a bunch of AD ratio, but the damage overall is much improved, both because you can get more bounces or more ricochets, as in more like, you know, more of the ability itself. You get more of that, and the ability itself is also like massively improved with the missile speed being improved. You get more range on the bounces as well. So you're just going to be dealing a lot more damage with this ability, and it also gives you more attack speed even before level 6, so that's really good. It's actually... actually, it might be worse now, because they did some hotfixes. We'll get to that later, actually. As for the spell shield, blocking an enemy ability now heals Sivir for 60 to 80% of her total AD. So that's not just bonus AD, that's total AD. So, you know, in lane that's like, I don't know, 40, 50 HP, 60 maybe. You know, before you bought any items. It's a decent amount. Some nice sustain. Now, also procs Sivir's passive, so you'll get some movement speed as well when you block an ability. And it no longer gives mana. So basically that's why we saw a reduction on all of her abilities, so that she's no longer completely reliant on her E. Like, she doesn't have to block stuff anymore to be able to, like, sustain herself and actually cast her abilities, because her mana costs were so absurd. No, now she can just use it, like, if she needs to, and if she does, she'll get some nice HP out of it. Ultimate cooldown reduced, duration increased per rank. Oh, actually, so I was thinking that it was lasting more than I was used to. Apparently, if you get a takedown now, it refreshes its duration. Wait, by how much, though? Anyway, Sivir's basic attacks during R. Now, reduce her basic ability cooldowns by 0.5 seconds per attack. So that's basically like a Navori-like effect, except not as big. So it's definitely really nice, though. You get a really low cooldown on Q, really low cooldown on W. If you're just auto-attacking the entire time during your R, I think you could get a literally just no cooldown on your W. But you have to have like a decent amount of attack speed and just be auto-attacking the entire time. But even without just having unlimited W, it was still really good. You could just do more damage now during your ultimate rather than it just being about the movement speed. And yeah, Sivir no longer gains bonus attack speed for more on the hunt, so that's during her W. The attack speed buff just gonna move to the W itself. And no longer gives Sivir and her allies an initial movement speed burst. So before it gave you like a ton of movement speed at the start, which scales down, and then it's just smooth sailing from there. Now it's just smooth sailing the entire time. There's no initial burst. They just removed that entirely to make the ability more interesting in other ways. That's all the changes we had for that patch. However, we did also get a hotfix nerf for Sivir, as well as a bunch of other champions, Xia and Gwen. Because honestly, she came out too strong right out the bat, so Q base damaging decreased by 10 at all ranks. W mana cost actually going up quite a bit per level. That's sad. And W cooldown increased to 12 seconds. So this was actually kind of deserved because for some reason they count the W cooldown starting as soon as you press the button rather than after the ability ends. So it's really, really good with like Navori, for example, which it still will be. And also the downtime was just not as big as you would expect. So 10-second cooldown, you'd think, oh, so I can only use this ability every 10 seconds. So you could actually only use it every 6 seconds, and even less if you had CDR, which is pretty good. So it'll be every 8 seconds now. And so the mana cost going up per level is a pretty big deal, because at least when I checked yesterday, she actually had a better win rate with W max than she did with Q max. Yeah, it's still the case. It's not got as great a sample size though, and we definitely might see that go down now because it's not going to be as good anymore. Because part of the benefit of doing that was that the mana cost on Q increases per rank, but the mana cost on W didn't. So you were just wasting. You were using less mana for using the same abilities that way. Now this is no longer going to be the case. And with the increased cooldown on W, that's also another reason why you might not want to max it. I still think W max is, or, you know, finishing maxing your W is going to be a really big deal, just like it always used to be, but even better now than it used to be. So maybe what you want to do is put 3 points in Q, and then start maxing W, so you can have that maxed out by the time you have items, where it's going to be a lot better. Obviously, the more attack speed you have, the more bounces you will actually get from your W, so the better an ability it is. And that might make it worth having maxed out by level 10, for example. That's always what I did on Sivir anyway, but I think it's especially good now. Aside from that, we got the release of Nilah. I don't think they list her abilities. Wait, do they? No, you're gonna have to watch her champion spotlight if you want to check her out. But basically, she seems to have released pretty strong off the bat. Already have 52% win rate overall. Win rate is even higher if you're building Shield Bow, which is just the only good mythic on her. Gonna be probably fast approaching 54% win rate. I'm surprised they didn't actually Huffix nerf her as well, because she is like too strong at the moment. However, at the moment she definitely trends towards being just a low stomper. Because in Plat Plus her win rate is like 3% lower. So she might still be broken in Plat Plus at the moment if she's come out too strong. If we keep seeing this win rate increase, she might end up being like 52% win rate even in Plat Plus. But if that happens, she will also have like a 56% win rate at all ranks, you know, which includes Silver Elo, which is most of the games. So I'm definitely expecting a Nilah nerf at some point. For now, I've got her in S tier. Definitely for low elo, she's an S tier pick. For Plat Plus, I'm not as sure about. It's possible, maybe not. We'll wait and see. But since most of you, I'm assuming, are below Plat, that's what I would rather cater my tier list towards. Previously, we also had Kog'Maw and Misfortune in S tier, but that was for lack of better options. We've moved them down to A tier because they're like Sivir and Nilah are just really far above the rest. Granted, I don't know what Sivir's win rate is going to be after the Huffix nerf, by the way. I can only go off of what she had before the nerf. I'm assuming she'll still be pretty good. Even if she only drops down to like 52.5% win rate after that, that would still be worthy for for S tier for me. But could be that I definitely had her like better than Nilah before. At least, you know, based on the data we have so far. Nilah could end up overtaking her and by far, though, so. Yeah, that's it. There's no other changes for this tier list. I will just quickly go over what you should do on these new champions, or this rework. So in Sivir, it's pretty much the same as before. For runes, you can use either Fleet Forward or you can use Lethal Tempo. You want to use Presence of Mind, especially now, because you don't even want to build Essence Rune anymore necessarily. So just Lethal Tempo or Fleet Forward into the, you know, regular runes there, into Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm. You could also use Magical Footwear into Biscuit Delivery if you want. Personally, I prefer Sorcery though, it just gives you more AD. The Ricochet may not scale as heavily with AD per bounce anymore, but it does still like scale really well with AD just because you get so many bounces. So she really loves that AD from the Sorcery. She also has a much better performance right now with Kraken Slayer over Guild Force, probably because you get much more attack speed with Guild Force over time, and she now scales really well with attack speed because of the Ricochet. You get more bounces the more attack speed you have, so you can probably still use Guild Force if you really want it, if you think it's going to be better for this situation. Personally, I just always go Kraken Slayer though. Shield Bow has a decent one right now, but we might see that go down as she gets more sample size. We'll see, but even right now, it's still nowhere as good as Kraken Slayer, and I'll expect it to stay that way. So that's everything for Sivir. Now as for Nilah, everybody that I've seen play Nilah so far was always using Lethal Tempo. The one game that I played with Nilah, I also tried Lethal Tempo because that's what everybody was using. However, she seems to have a much better win rate with Conqueror. Seems actually everybody's switching over to Conqueror already. Everybody can already see that has a much better win rate. Also, don't use Presence of Mind. I used Presence of Mind. It was fucking crap. I did not realize, but you can spam your Q off cooldown as Nilah. You do not run out of mana anyway. What a waste of a rune. Do not use Presence of Mind. Always Triumph. It much better fits her playstyle as well, since she's melee. She has to go in. She plays a very risky playstyle, and the Triumph heal will often save her life. And as for the Conqueror, you can just stack it up really fast because you're a melee champion, so even your auto attacks give you 2 stacks. Your Q is on a low cooldown. Gives you 2 stacks, so you can stack that up really fast. I can't really speak for the damage, whether it's as good as Lethal Tempo, but at least you can get to the healing portion just very fast. And it seems like that's very good on her, because she is like a very heavily healing-based champion, so it just adds more synergy to that. As for secondary runes, most people are just using Domination, I think. Yeah, Taste of Blood into Treasure Hunter, but I predicted probably Resolve secondary would be better. So far, the win rate seems to suggest that. You can either do Second Wind if you're expecting to go against a lot of poke in lane, or you can probably do Conditioning. I think it's going to be the best choice in most games. Into Overgrowth, maybe Revitalize will end up being better, just because she gets so much healing, and she amplifies shielding from her supports as well. So maybe you might want to go Revitalize if you're like with a Lulu or something, and Overgrowth if you're not. I imagine that would be pretty good actually. Because she gets so much healing of herself that when you pair that with another support that's healing or shielding her, it should be really good. But overgrowth you definitely can't go wrong with. Bone plating I think is always just worse, honestly. Yeah, I think those are pretty much the main options for her. You want to go the attack speed shard. She's heavily attack speed based. As for her items, you can definitely always only go shield bow. It's the only option for her. You can only do shield bow. And as for what to pair with shield bow, everybody that I've seen so far does Phantom Dancer. However, Essence Reaver has a promising win rate, and so does Collector. We still need more data on these. I wouldn't take these at face value. But yeah, I think this Essence Reaver is definitely looking very promising. You can get a really low cooldown. Your Q is just on a very low cooldown even from the start of the game, so you can definitely spam that quite a bit. Definitely removes any mana issues you might potentially have, although I don't think she has any anyway. But definitely ensures that you'll never run out of mana. Collector second, yeah, like I said, an option potentially. I don't know if it would be as good as Essence Reaver though. Guess we'll have to wait and see on that. It could still be like quite good. We have to wait for more data here. But definitely, like, even if Phantom Dancer turns out to be the worst of these options, it's still like got a really good win rate. So you know, in the sense you can't go wrong with that. You're not gonna like fail just because you build Phantom Dancer. But potentially you could get even better results with Essence Reaver or Collector. We'll just have to wait and see. In the meantime, build whatever you want. Try out Phantom Dancer, try out Essence Reaver, see what you prefer. And the rest of it is just pretty much standard ADC itemization. I think, yeah, a lot of people are doing Death Dance 4th. So you might want to build a bit more defensively just because she's a melee champion. That's where the Death Dance comes in. Bloodthirst also doing pretty well on her, it seems. And people are enjoying that on her. You could also start Doran's Shield, by the way. That's not something I usually recommend in ADCs, but Nilah being melee, it's a different case. You can build Doran's Shield if you're just facing a lot of poke in lane and you need that to help you sustain yourself. And yeah, I think that pretty much just about covers everything. Okay, just max Q into E into W. Yeah, okay, that's gonna be it for my tier list, which turned out off into a Sivir and Nilah guide. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want to keep up with future guides, or future tier lists, sorry. But also guides, I will definitely try and put out the Nilah guide later on today. I already put out a Sivir guide. I'll try and link that in the description if I remember. But yeah, I'm gonna be spamming Nilah all day until I get a good enough game and like properly learn the champion so I can put out a guide for her. And I'll hope to see you guys then. So yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Later, gamers.